You're listening to the Influential Conversations podcast with the property management coach and industry influence of the year, Kirk, Stafford, and guests. This series is proudly brought to you by Tappy, an Australian-first platform delivering the total property care solution to help property managers provide a world-class maintenance experience to their landlords and tenants and to save them processing time on this maintenance. In Inspection Express, the market leader in property inspection reporting and a digital signature platform to provide all your property documentation in one place, giving you a seamless approach to the way you manage properties. And Agent Dynamics, the Australian market-leading team development ecosystem to help you nurture, grow and retain your property teams since 2014. Now, here's your host, Kirk Stafford. Well, hello again and welcome to another in Series 2 of the Influential Conversation podcast. My name's Kirk Stafford, as you know, and joining me today is a woman I've known for about 10 years, I think it is, Renee Whitehouse, who's the Director of Property Management for Harris Property Group. Renee's been in the industry for 22 years, worked in diverse locations across Victoria, or Melbourne particularly, and into Queensland. Currently, the rent roll that she's in charge of is 175 properties. There's 2 of them running it. Renee, welcome.
Hi, Kirk. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This is actually a conversation I've really been looking forward to having, because you and I, as I said, we've known each other for a while, and I sort of look at you as a bit of a dynamo. I really do. And I've watched your path basically over the time that I've known you. I'm thinking, gee, there's a woman who's going places. So tell us about you. How did you get in to property management? What drew you to it?
It's a funny story. Literally, I fell into it. Mm-hmm. Not going to lie. Yep. Through my school journey, I had no clue what I wanted to do. My auntie works in real estate. Actually, I've got my auntie who works in real estate in Melbourne, and I've got a great auntie who used to work in real estate in Brisbane. So I loved hearing their conversations around property and real estate, and I've always liked real estate. But yeah, when I finished school, I had no clue what I wanted to do, and I literally fell into a receptionist position. Mm-hmm. I started at Hocking Stewart in Carnegie back in the day. Yeah, I was at that office for a few years. And I did, reception, office management, advertising, trust accounting, and I assisted the PM team briefly while some of them took leave over the holiday period. Yep. And it sort of sparked my interest a little bit. And then I did a little bit of travel after that. Mm-hmm. I travelled around Australia with a friend who you know very well, Di Code.
Yeah, I've seen some of the old photos. Yes. You two had a hell of a trip.
We did have a hell of a trip. So I actually worked with Di at Hocking Stewart in Carnegie. So she gave me my first ever real estate gig. And so, I travelled around Australia for a couple of months and ended up back in Melbourne in a job that it wasn't giving me joy, I guess. Yep. And I made the decision to move to Brisbane. So I moved to Brisbane when I was in my mid-20s. I lived there for nearly 6 years, and that was when I got into property management when I was up there. So I was working in New Farm, which is a really amazing suburb just on the north side of the river in just past the CBD. It was such a great experience. I really loved working for that team. And when I was employed as being like the office manager. I did the advertising and the trust accounting and that type of thing. But the property manager who was there, she left after about 12 months of me being there. And my director asked me if I wanted to do a bit of a change and step into the PM role. So I did. And I loved it. When I left, I think from memory, there was about 250 or 300 properties that we were managing, and there was a couple of staff that I was managing as well. Towards the end of me being in that position, I was literally working myself into the ground.
Yeah, we have a tendency to do that.
Yeah. And the thing was, like, all of my family was back home in Melbourne, and the majority of my friends were back home in Melbourne. And I think in the last 12 months or so of me being there, I had come home to Melbourne at least, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 times. And I was thinking to myself, why am I doing that? Why still be here?
Yep.
And I wanted to move back and be closer to my family and friends.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when I was up there was, maybe a couple of years of me being up there. I got some really terrible news that my parents were separating. So it was really hard to be away from my family, particularly at that time. And I'm sure, obviously people go through a whole heap of stuff. Yeah. But for me, and you know me and my family, so we're all very, very close and tight-knit, and that just threw me for 6, I think.
Yeah, and it would. I think that sort of news would throw anyone, and particularly, like you said, when you're so distant from it, even though it's only a couple of states away, it's still it's a gulf, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So I decided to leave where I was and come back to Melbourne. So I moved back to Melbourne just before I turned 30, and then I ended up. It took me a while to find my groove, I think.
Yeah.
When I moved back to Melbourne, in terms of finding the right fit of a job, I don't want to bore you with the details, but there was a couple of different agencies that I'd worked for little stints, and they weren't the right fit, just the wrong dynamic with myself and the directors of those businesses, and they saw things differently to the way I saw them, and some I felt were a little bit unethical and didn't have the right values and morals that I held. Mm-hmm. So
and that's where it becomes a bit challenging. And look, I think we all, regardless of where we are in life, there's always a period where we go through that sort of period where we're not settled, where things just don't seem right to us. Yeah. And you just go, well, what is it? Is it me? Is it the job? Is it where I'm living? And you've got to look at it that way and say, well, it's actually, and if it's the job, there's no harm and there's no shame in saying, this doesn't suit. We're not a good match for each other. And you've got to then, for your own sake and also for the sake of the business that you're with, say, okay, it's maybe this isn't a good thing for us.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hard and really tricky for me because I've always been a worker, and for me to not find a groove and to not feel like I have like a home, like a work home, it was really hard because I'd had such a great experience with the team that I was working in Brisbane, to come home and not find that immediately. I was like, oh, have I made the wrong call? So, like you said, it was just a bit of self-doubt and just being unsure. After that, I did find employment. I was working at a company in St Kilda for nearly 3 years, and out of the blue, I received a phone call from our good friend Kylie Tartan.
I was wondering when she's going to come into the story.
Yes. So Kylie and I have known each other for probably a similar time to you and myself. Kylie and I used to do boot camps and stuff together way back when, and so that's how I met her. But she called me one day and she's like, what are you doing? Are you happy where you are? I would really love for us to have a sit-down chat about a potential opportunity. So I went and met her at her office in Sandringham, and at the time, with her business, Charlton King, she was running it purely as a property management-based business, but she wanted to branch out and do sales. So she wanted to test herself and start that division herself, and then she wanted me to come on board and look after the rent roll that she'd built from scratch a few years prior. So I accepted her position, and it was funny because I really believe in, if you put things out to the universe and you manifest them, that things happen. And I'd followed her journey for a while because I'd known her through boot camps, but I really liked the way that she operated from what I'd seen of her and what I'd spoken to her about in between us doing push-ups and squats and stuff at boot camps. And I was like...
That breathless stage, you're going...
Yeah, exactly. I just thought I would really love to work with her one day. And then I get this call a year or two later. So it was, I truly believe that.
Oh, look, I think you're right. Opportunities, they present themselves so long as we're present for them.
Correct, yeah. I was working with Kylie. I've sort of lost track of the timeline, but I think it was about 3.5 or 4 years. We're working at Charlton King together, and it was such a great environment to work in. She's very supportive. Yep. She trusted me to look after her clients, and I literally felt like when I was coming on board, it was my baby that I was looking after with the portfolio. She taught me so much, and I still think so highly of her from what we went through that period. Just the way that I saw her interact with her clients, I think it made me a better human and also a better property manager.
I think she ran a really good business, and I know that when I stepped into your role,
you did. You helped me. When I went away on holidays.
It'd be 7 years ago or something like that. It seems like a lifetime. But I think I was in that role and thought, sorry.
I think I went away to Japan and I was skiing when you stepped in for me.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you hate that. I know.
He says through grins.
I know. That's why I dropped it.
But I've been 3 times now.
All right.
Yeah, but I walked into that rent roll and I basically had nothing to do because the whole thing was particularly you, because you took it on after Kylie had started it, but you had that run so efficiently. That all I was doing for I think it was 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. All I was doing was babysitting, and it was just, I mean, and I got paid to do it. I mean, but
I remember doing a handover with you, and then before I left, and then when I came back, and it was like, that it was pretty smooth.
That's right. Well, there was nothing. Look, you had it all set out, and that's tribute to, and this is why I wanted to talk to you, because you're such a. And I said before, you're bloody dynamo, because I know a bit about your personal life, but everything's organised, and you're one of the very few people I know that's got such obviously clearly defined goals about and understanding of yourself. So firstly, you've got to understand who you are, but you've also got to have those goals so clearly defined. How did you get to that point where you could be so clear in what you're after? Because I think a lot of people, and I've done it myself from time to time, we get a little bit lost in the fog. How are you being able to stay so clear on what it is that you're intending to do?
It's a really good question.
You weren't expecting that one, were you?
I was not expecting that, and I don't really know how to answer.
That wasn't in the brief.
No, I thought this was scripted, Kirk.
Nothing even close.
I know. As I said earlier, I've always been a worker. I think my end goal is to always try and get the best outcome for my clients, whether it's a tenant or a landlord, or I should say the residential rental provider and a renter now, but always try and get the best outcome regardless of what the situation is. And if it's not the best outcome, trying to have an amicable resolution. I think that really, even during those challenging conversations with people, the end result and having something done and ticked off for me is a goal. And that does bring me joy in trying to help as best I can in whatever the situation may be. I don't know what else.
Yeah, look, it's difficult, isn't it? Because someone throws that, and that wasn't in the brief, I know, but it was just one of those things I thought, because you seem to be so clear about what it is you want, and I'm just wondering whether that's something that's inherent in you, which has come from maybe one or both of your parents or something along those lines. But it's also, I think, a thing that in property management we've got to be so clear. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be grey, but we've got to be really clear about what we expect an outcome to be.
Yeah, yeah. I think, a little bit about where I'm working at the moment, and I think It's really tricky because I can be very direct and I can be quite blunt to a degree, depending on who it is and the situations, and trying to also have empathy and respect at the same time can be a fine line.
Yeah, it is. And it's, Sorry, go on.
And what I was going to say is that I work with my colleague, Rachel, who you have met.
Yep.
And Rachel's green to the industry. She's been working with me for 2 years now. And me trying to, I want to say, I hate using this term, but I want to mold her to try and be the better version of herself in terms of how she can be a great property manager.
Yep.
Her and I are completely different in terms of processes and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I wanted to try and instill in her that, how do I say it? Trying to get the best results for our clients still, whilst having that empathy and respect, but she's not as direct and blunt as what I can be. And I feel that me trying to assist her along the way with that, it's a really, really fine line. Does that make sense? I don't really.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You see, the thing is, if you've got someone with you who's new to the industry, and we've got that experience behind us, we can speak with a bit more confidence and a little bit more assertiveness to our clients. And anyone who knows me knows that I don't sort of differentiate between tenants and landlords. And I'd say I use those terms because they are common terms. That's right. They are the legal terms. But I don't differentiate between clients and their needs. We're always trying to find that balance. But when you've got someone new and you try to mentor them and bring them along, there's always going to be that, I guess, that tentativeness in a lot of cases with them. So what are you doing with Rachel that is helping her to overcome that sort of tentative approach, I guess you'd call it? And that's not meant as a criticism, because I know Rachel's probably going to listen into this.
If she doesn't.
Yeah, well.
Yes.
So what's been your approach?
So initially, because she was so green to it, I took her out with me everywhere we were going, just so that she could listen to the conversations that I was having with people during open for inspections or routines, and getting her stuck in. Like, I literally threw her in the deep end at the beginning to do a condition report. And then we did a vacate inspection together, and she loves them now. Not really, but it's part of the job. So I threw her in the deep end a little bit with those types of things, but with the conversations that we have with people on the phone and on email and whatnot, I see her in on a fair few of my emails, just so that she can get a broader understanding of how I interact with my clients. Obviously, the legislative stuff is important. If someone's asking a question, I want her to know how I've responded into whatever, regarding whatever the issue may be. And yes, like sending her to any relevant training that I think might assist her, that I can't assist her with myself, or I might not have, like, I don't know everything. But if I feel like she might get something out of, going to one of Hayley's sessions, or, one of Shane and David's sessions, or, reading your blogs that you send out, sending her to those types of things, I think is really important, especially for someone, like, she's got a great energy about her. And
she has.
I feel like she's got a really good drive as well. I've said to her many a time, and so has Luke, our CEO, that if she were to have started green 2 years ago in the industry and wasn't working with someone like myself, who didn't care about what her future is going to look like, then I feel like she may not be in the industry still.
Yeah. But that's the importance of having someone as a really good mentor, which is what you can call yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
To bring people along who knew that little bit of extra. You can't just, and this, I think this happened to me, and I think it happens to the majority of people. It's a case of you are completely tossed in the deep end with no support around you. It's like the old mantra from years ago. Well, there's your desk, there's your phone. Best of luck. You're on your own.
Yep. See you later.
These days, yeah, exactly. And by the way, don't stuff up. But these days, I think we're becoming more aware of that of the importance of mentoring and the importance of coaching and keeping your education up and making sure that you become as knowledgeable and you absorb as much as you can. As you said, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter whose training it is. And I don't, I'm quite happy. I've brought Hayley up before and I've brought David and Shane up before. Well, I'm quite happy for them to get mentions in this as well because, once again, I've got my style, they've got their style. Everybody will gravitate towards different people.
Yep.
But if you've got someone within an office who can give you that guidance, who can say to you, look, you did well, but you could do better if you did this, and just redirect that energy a little bit and that can redirect conversations and can lead to completely different outcomes.
Totally. And sometimes what I've done this a fair bit with her recently, I was like, I'll flick her an email. I'm like, you tell me how you would handle this situation and what the best response would be.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's done really well.
Good. Yeah. Well, that's. I think after a couple of years, she should be able to do that, and you should be able to do that as well. Say, okay, tell me what you'd say in this situation, because again, she may have, may have a completely different take on it and different perspective than you. And I've had that with people before, staff that I've managed before. And I'm just going, I never thought of doing it that way.
Yeah.
See, again, and it's what we said earlier. We don't know everything.
Yeah.
And it's always being open to learn from different sources. Exactly. So tell me, what are the good bits do you think about the job that we do?
Oh, it's going to sound so cliche.
But people,
but it is.
It is. I know it is. That's why.
Really
I know. Yeah.
And not just the people that I have as clients, both the owners of the property and the renters, but it's people like you and Di and Hayley and everyone that I've met in my 22 years along the way of real estate. Everybody has taught me so much, whether it's a work lesson or if it's a life lesson. You and I've had some pretty interesting conversations outside of work, which I very much appreciate. But it comes down to the people. And the team that you work with as well.
That's right. And it's not a cliche. Well, people can see that if they like, but it's not really a cliche because that's why we do what we do. I mean, this is and I think we all say it and probably give some sort of acknowledgement to it, but this is a relationship-driven business.
Yeah.
We survive and thrive on the strength of our relationships, whether it's with our clients or internally within the industry. And that's why we now see people collaborating a lot more rather than competing with each other, particularly when you're talking about some of the coaches, consultants and trainers around that I'm dealing with. I'm doing some fantastic collaboration stuff behind the scenes, and some of it's going to be public stuff soon too.
Yeah.
But, there's all that going on. We get to a point, I think I read it somewhere, I think it was Hermione a couple of days ago, said competition is what happens below the line, collaboration is what happens at the top. I thought, gee, I like that. Yeah, I like that. I might steal that and repurpose it for a blog at some stage.
Why not?
But
all about collaboration.
Of course it is. Yeah. But people also come with their challenges. We know that. I mean, relationships, as much as we'd like to think they're all, sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, they're not. There are challenges in there.
Yes. Sorry. There are many challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you when? And sort of using that as a segue, I guess, how do you, when you get those challenges, bring yourself out of it? If you hit a flat spot, what do you do for you to lift you back up out of it?
I love going to the gym.
Yeah.
That is my outlet. I got into training when I moved back from Brisbane, actually, when I moved back home to Melbourne. So, about 11 or 12 years ago. But specifically weight training for the last 8 or so years. That is, I just love the process of it. Not necessarily, lifting X amount of weights at, in an 8-week challenge or whatever it is, but it's the whole process along the way, I think, in terms of your mental strength and, seeing changes just obviously with your body, but throughout your relationships as well. I think you prioritize the people that you want around you that are going to be a good influence on you because you have a really good mindset, as opposed to hanging out with someone who wants to party all the time and drink all the time, and they're lazy.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And I know my mood. I'm always in a better frame of mind the next day or for a couple of days after I've done a really solid workout. My workouts are insignificant, but I've seen some of the videos you posted yours. I'm just looking and going, how even do you do that? But you're right. It is, it's incremental. You don't go to the gym and expect to lift, 50 or 100 kgs as a deadlift or whatever if you've not been training for it. You've got to build up to that. It's building that physical muscle, but also the mental muscle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's when you talk about the mental muscle, I think that's resilience and confidence and belief in yourself to be able to get to that point where you can, and then you can apply that. I mean, you look at, we were talking before about having confidence, instilling confidence in staff.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. I mean, you're applying the same principle, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
So how else have you? I mean, the weight training, whatever, is one way. What else do you do to sort of keep yourself running at an optimum level?
I think that with the weight training, obviously comes good nutrition, but in terms of like mental health and that type of thing, it all falls under the same category. But I love listening to a really good podcast, listening to other people's stories.
I got a series.
Yeah. Oh, do you? What's it called again?
Well, funny you should ask.
Yeah. What is it? Please. Or going to inspiring conferences, or even just calling someone and say, "Hey, I've had a rough day. I need a vent."
Yeah.
Like that's all part of it.
Yeah. So it's feeding the mind as well as the body. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I reckon that's probably a really good point where we can wind it up. I think time's going to run down on us very shortly. Just one really quick thing, and I'm starting to say this or ask this of people: is there a particular saying that you use as a mantra, or just something in your head that from time to time you'll bring out to help you keep going, and that somebody listening to this might get some value from?
I was listening to an amazing podcast the other day, and this is something that it was, yes. And they were interviewing this woman who said something about the grass always being greener where you water it.
Yep.
So instead of people looking at it from the other perspective and say the grass is always greener on the other side, if you water where you are and you put energy into what you're doing and you have clear goals around it, then things happen and come to fruition.
Yep, that's right. And the flip side to that one is the grass on the other side of the fence, if it's greener, is normally artificial lawn.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Because and that's when it's particularly viewed through the prism of social media. But that's a whole other conversation that we've had before, which we won't go into now. Renee, thank you so much. I've been so deeply grateful for you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you again soon. Renee Whitehouse from Harris Property Group, thank you. It's been an absolute delight, and I will see you very soon.
Thanks, Kirk.
You've been listening to another podcast in the Influential Conversations series. This series is proudly brought to you by Tappy, helping property managers deliver a world-class maintenance experience to their landlords and tenants, and providing a total property care solution. Inspection Express, the market leader in property inspection reporting and digital signature property documentation, giving you a seamless approach to the way that you manage properties. And Agent Dynamics, the Australian market-leading team development ecosystem to help you nurture, grow and retain your property teams since 2014. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next time for the next in this series.